Okay, yay. Hi,
Yay.
everybody, and welcome. This is our first podcast episode. And well, I guess we have a working title for our podcast because we
Yes.
can change it. But I had thought maybe we could do insight. So, well, before we get into our podcast, we can introduce ourselves. And so, hi, I am Lily. I am an anxiety coach, a three principles practitioner, and someone who used to struggle very severely with anxiety, panic, and OCD. And now I'll introduce my co host.
And I am Falon, and I have severe anxiety. Well, had severe anxiety, and I am a stay-at-home mom working on it.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest.
Soon to be therapist, though. I am. That is my goal. I'm going to school.
Yes, yes, yeah. And so Fallon and I have known each other for about 6 months, and I've got to hear about so many of Fallon's insights. And I had the idea, like, how much fun to get together, have a podcast, and have a conversation with both of us. And I think let me think of what my aim was. When somebody can say something one way and like you never heard, like, oh my God, I've heard that before, but I never heard it. And
Yeah.
I've loved the energy that you've shared, your insights and kind of the changes you've seen. And I really felt like it would be so powerful to people to hear from you and that could spark their own insights, because
Yeah.
and why the working title in insights are what can really lead to transformation from the inside out. And you don't even need to know what I mean right now, but I thought we'll just introduce ourselves. You can get to know us a little bit. Um, do you want me to go first about saying,
Yeah.
okay, I was always like an anxious child, and then I grew up into an anxious adult, but my anxiety really went to the next level in 2011 when I had a panic attack. And my panic attacks involved like a feeling of unreality and like I could lose my mind, and also intrusive thoughts. Um, and driving anxiety because I had my first panic attack in the car. And like a lot of people, then you can kind of have panic about panic and associate those feelings. So from 2011 to 2018, I really struggled very severely. And a big part of it was like questioning my sanity because it didn't feel like anxiety. I think before then I'd experienced health anxiety. Um, I don't know where I was going with the health anxiety, but so I struggled and I tried so many different things. I'd already been in therapy. I'd been a school psychologist at 2011. It was earlier in my career. But I like ramped everything up and tried, more therapy, more retreats. I did, experiential therapy and neurofeedback, cognitive behavioral therapy, everything from kind of your traditional to spirituality, mindfulness based stress reduction, crystals, essential oils, supplements, and some stuff would work, but nothing was long lasting. And I really thought like I was doing it wrong because I also would meditate and teach meditation in schools and I would still struggle. And I really thought like I was wrong or I was broken. What was I doing wrong? And I also really feared for my sanity. And then in 2018, I found a woman named Sari Taylor, who Sari and I also have another podcast, which I think is kind of like a fun thing that like Sari introduced me to the principles. We have a podcast. And then Fallon and I also have that shared kind of story. And so in 2018, I put into Google like anxiety, panic help, like I always did, like what's the next thing? And up pops Sari Taylor. And she had like a 5 or 7 day anxiety course and she sent you a little video and I watched it and I heard something that I hadn't really heard before. And I started to see that maybe there was less for me to do and maybe I wasn't broken and maybe everything that I was doing was kind of like setting me up for panic. I just heard it in a different
Yeah.
way. And also with Sari, she was the first person who I felt like had anxiety as bad as me. and um and so in 2018, I found the three principles. And one of my early insights was, I had a really like long night routine, a really long morning routine. I was just so afraid like that anything could set me off and I could panic and then like lose my mind. I was just super like hyper vigilant. And then I'm like seeing how much detail to go in, but I started to see that I didn't have to take my thoughts so seriously. And that also I didn't have to do so much to have a new thought. Because before I would do like tapping and journaling and like shake it out and thought work. And with what Sari was sharing, it was like, oh, thoughts flow all on their own. And also just because I had a thought, like you could have a panic attack or whatever, if it was an unwanted thought or like a physical sensation, I saw the role of like my imagination. It was really like, I think I stopped taking it so personally and so seriously, and that it was safe not to think so much. And I'm sure over time we're going to share our stories more, but that was started to change my life, and in a way that was so much simpler than anything else I'd tried before. And the simplicity was the key, because a lot of what I was doing before, I thought a lot about, whether it was like diet changes and I have to get enough sleep and I have to do X, Y, and Z in the morning or after a panic attack or when I get this thought. And it just like kept me in my head so much. And when I came into the three principles, I was like out of my head a little bit more and in my life. And I didn't think I was so broken and special in a bad way. And that's how I came into the three principles about a little over 5 years ago. And I was a school psychologist. And then I started sharing it as a school psychologist, kind of like the simple truths about it all. And I really wanted to share it with adults because I was like, why didn't anybody tell me this? Like, why isn't this
Yeah.
mainstream? Like, why didn't my therapist say this? Also, no hate to any of them but I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to share it with people. And then in 2020, I started sharing because it was the pandemic and so many people were online. And that's a little bit about my story. Oh, and then also wrapping it up, I came into it because I was like, let me not have panic attacks and driving anxiety. But as a result, those fell away, but so did my health anxiety. And so did all of my physical symptoms. And some that I just never thought, like I had headaches and stomach aches from the time I was a little girl. Like I just thought I was prone to it. But I also always thought that meant I was going to have like stomach cancer and, like a brain tumor. And I never even thought it was possible not to just have this feeling of dread. I just worried so much, but I had no idea that that was on offer. Another surprise was I always worried as a child and then as a mom. Like I just obsessively worried about the people I loved, my family, and then my immediate family, and then my kids. And I thought that I had no idea that it was possible to love without worry. And so I wouldn't have even gone searching for that. But that's another change. So not only did my anxiety and panic and OCD fall away, but so did my like health worries and then my worries just like about the people I love. Like I knew, oh my God, I can love without fear. I can love without worry. And so I saw like drastic changes in my relationships and like I'm more at ease than I was as a child. And I never, that's something I never would have thought possible. I also always thought like, oh, I guess I'm always going to have anxiety and just like manage it. And I wouldn't
Yeah.
even identify as an anxious person now. So and I'm still a human with normal like ups and downs in life, but I'm just so much more at peace. And that's why I get really excited to share this understanding. And then I'll pass it over to you, Falon, and just even to say, how you came into this and where you are now.
Yeah, I feel the same way about you, probably that you did with Sari, because you've changed my life. And I didn't think though that there was somebody like, I'm sure, I don't think we're like in the same, but like there was someone who related to me so much. And I thought it was so cool the fact that you're a therapist as well. I remember, so I've had anxiety probably like the earliest I remember is 16 having panic attacks, but I didn't know really what they were. I just know that I'd be like sick and so afraid and feel like really weird. And then as soon as if I was out and told somebody to like bring me home, I'd get home and I was completely fine. So I don't know. But the more when I got pregnant is where I started to get, my dad's gonna die. My mom's gonna die. What if this person dies? And like I started to get like really like that worrying. And then it's just been years and years, I feel, because I'll be 34 soon. So, and nothing worked for me. I journaled
Mm.
every single day, probably 3 times a day. I'd have the CBT notebook that I've tried. I've psychiatrist, therapist, all of it, and I just have always been the same. And then when I met you, so I feel like a couple years ago, I had like intrusive thoughts, no idea what they were. I just thought I was probably some psycho person that was going to end up going manic. But I remember it was almost, I think it was right before, and I think no, during the pandemic, I found your TikTok. So I'm like watching all of it and I'm like, oh, there is hope. But I had no idea. And just even so, the last 6 months with you, it's really like, at first I didn't get it. It was like, I want to know about it. And like, there's no way that my anxiety is just going to be okay. I'm not going to be at peace with it. But now it's like, you can really like slowly feel learning the 3 principles. Like, and I feel like I want to tell everybody, but I don't know all of it yet. And I'm like, I'm not like a practitioner in it or anything. So I feel like, who am I to tell somebody, but it really is like when Sid Banks said, don't even pay attention to what I'm like, you're just going to feel it because that's what's happening.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's to me, I'm like, who are you not to? Because how, for anybody listening, the way to allow for insights is just to listen. And I think for you and I is just to share our insights and to share stories. And you're great at sharing stories. And that's all you need to
Yeah,
do
thank you.
because we don't need to try to teach it. We can share
Yeah.
stories. And
Well, I wonder if people are gonna be like me where they, like, aren't gonna believe it at first, like, there's no way that this is just gonna make you calm. But because I really did feel that. I'm like, "I love this. I love Lily, but I don't think I'm gonna ever feel the way she feels." And now that it's like a breath of fresh air, and it's like you just, like, woken up.
yeah,
And I feel like I'm gonna be okay if I always have, like, anxiety or if I feel anxiety or anything.
yeah,
I'm not as worried as I was 6 months ago.
yeah, yeah. And that's what for anybody listening too, like we are very special, Fallon and I, but we're also not. Like, not, there's not anything magical that makes it possible for us to have insights, for us to get to a place where, kind of disordered anxiety can fall away. Um,
Yeah.
and that's why I thought it was going to be so cool because you're close to like, because I guess maybe I think we've started talking like one on one more like 6 months ago. And so it's like what I thought was so cool is like that you're newer in this conversation and you're newer
Yeah.
to remembering what it was like to be more anxious.
I feel like it was so bad too, and I, like, remember my conversations with you feeling, like, all these scared feelings, but just not believing it was anxiety, like, why the hell would anxiety make me feel like I'm gonna go insane or, like, give me that sensation?
Yeah.
And I don't even get those sensations anymore, but, like, I still get anxiety, I just don't get scared.
Yeah.
And I never thought that that was ever, like, going to happen, and I don't think I'm ever gonna be perfect because I still have, like, irritability, there's still, like, little things that need to come up, but a lot of it's just I feel like it's at peace, is how I feel.
Mm. Yeah.
So now I'm waiting for all the other stuff to come at peace.
Well, and the great thing is there's not like an end point. There's like we just get to deepen our understanding and see things. I think I was telling you I started a new coaching program with Aaron Turner and I just started on Thursday. And I'm having so many insights about my coaching practice and actually my own like impulses. And so, yeah, the first layer was like disordered anxiety, obsessions, and panic and physical symptoms. Um, and then I started to have insights around like my relationships and kind of getting, for lack of a better word, like triggered or activated, like shutting down and also around like, yeah, how do I deal with feedback from a partner, or like how do I deal with my own judgment of myself and others, um and then how do I work and like and so the great thing is, not like there's always more to see in an annoying way, but in a beautiful way where I'm 100% not perfect, but I'm so okay with being a lovable mess, and more of the time I'm at ease and really content. And that's what Sarah and I, our podcast is, the perfectly imperfect duo. And so you and I can also
Yeah.
be perfectly imperfect.
Yes, I love that too.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
Um,
it's great to feel like I just feel like probably right after I had my son, he's 17 months old, I would be distraught that I was always, what if I think this way forever? What if I feel this way forever? I never pictured myself at peace. I've always pictured and worried like about the worst case scenario. And I mean, I had like derealization the other night and it was gone in 5 minutes. So, it's like you would never think that though. I swear, because when you're in it, it's so scary. It really is like you think it's never ending.
I know. I know there's so much that I want to ask you, but I don't want it to make it seem like I'm like, I just think it's so, because you're so close to it, that like, wow, 17 months ago. Um, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of like, oh, what
You
would
can
you
ask away.
do?
I'm an open
Okay.
book.
Okay. Okay. But you can always tell me, oh, um, I guess the two things that I'm kind of curious about what you said was, one, like if there was somebody who was where you felt 17 months ago, was that like your worst? Like if you're open to it, I can share how I felt like, and maybe I'll do that so you don't feel like, one of my
Yeah.
bottom low moments was probably about 7 years ago. I had two kids, and all I'd ever wanted to be is a mom. That's still. Um, I had no idea I'd get to have this dream job, but before it was just being a mom. That was the only job I wanted, and I was a mom, and I was married, and I had been dealing with very severe anxiety, like intrusive thoughts. Mine were really around like, what if I like lost control and like harmed people and like lost my mind. So those were kind of, so we can have a whole other episode on intrusive thoughts. And also I already have,
Yes.
we'll do an episode on that. But if you're like, what are you talking about, intrusive thoughts? If you go to any hosting platform and put in my name, and you'll find a bunch of other ones. But at my lowest moment, um, and sometimes when we're really struggling with anxiety, it can be like exhausting, like after kind
Yeah.
of 70 days of panic. So I was just utterly exhausted, which also, it's funny I say that. Sometimes free of anxiety, we can be exhausted. But I think sometimes when you're used to everything seeming like a problem, feeling tired can also feel like a problem. So I was lying on the floor of my kids' playroom and I was just tired, but I was beating myself up also for that experience, and I thought, you have everything you've ever dreamed of, and um you're miserable. And then I had this thought, you should kill yourself. And I had never had that thought, like, because sometimes with an intrusive thought, it can seem like a command or something. And so I thought
Yeah.
that made me really losing my mind. So I like started panicking, and I walked outside and I called my mom. I'm like, you have to check me into a hospital. And also, I don't want to diminish anybody needing mental health support or talking about true thoughts of suicide. And for me, it was just, what I know now is just an unwanted. That was just a thought that I was like, I'm miserable. My brain's like, oh, maybe you could end your life. What didn't mean.
Yeah.
But so that scared me so much because I had such a big misunderstanding. about what was going on. And I really was just like terrified for my future, and the fact that like, how am I so unhappy when I on paper had everything I ever wanted? And that's things started to turn around not long after. One big part, even before I came into the principles, was I started even just having a little mother's helper come over sometimes, because I just also had like, you should never be away from your kids. And like, I was a school psychologist, but on the weekends, their dad was starting a new business. And like, even to have some time where I'd have like, all I could afford was like a 13-year-old to come over. But she'd be
Yeah.
with them in the other room and I could just like lie in my bed for an hour. But so that was an aside. But my lowest point was like, still I had such severe panic attacks too, and my when my kids would be in the car, even if they were like laughing in the back, it was completely terrifying to me because I was so afraid of like panic even more and losing my mind when I drive. But I still tried to like keep a good front and like work and take them to dance class and take them to soccer, and I would yell. And so that was also, I'm a really naturally like loving, easygoing person, and I was for my whole first child's childhood. And so to yell at my kids, I would yell at them in the car, like, shut the fuck up, because I was so overstimulated and just completely, whether they were fighting, but even if they were excited, it was so overwhelming. So at my low point, I just was like, who am I? I just felt like a shell of the person that I was. And a big part of it was just like a shell of the mother that I knew I could be. And not to be very depressing, but that was my lowest point.
Yeah, no, that's all too. And do you ever feel like it was like postpartum or anything or
Yeah, yeah, and I think my postpartum came, like, later too,
yeah,
like, I definitely had an early postpartum, 100%, I definitely, I yeah, but I also think, I know for me, it wasn't the hormones, it was how much I was in my head,
yes.
how completely, and sure, there could have played a role, but I, um I was probably in my head in somewhat of an anxious state for, if we think of our waking hours, like if I'm awake for, I don't know, let's say 18 hours or 17
Mm,
hours. Back then, I was probably at a quiet peace for like 2 hours, and probably anxious for like 15, of
yeah.
some, just because I was, you know, or that the even if the 2 hours were split up, like, and I think now I'm not anxious. I mean, I'm at a quiet peace. Sure, I might like, I don't know, be in my head kind of planning, but honestly, I'm at a quiet peace now for all 17. I mean, it's not like I'm like, oh, Buddha level quiet peace. Like sometimes I might be slightly irritated or, oh, I'm in my head trying to schedule, but it's such a drastic difference. So to me, that made the biggest difference. Um, But yes, I'm sure there was something to do with the postpartum, but I actually know I could work myself up postpartum or not. But yeah, what about
Yeah, so I could too. Well, I asked that because one of my lowest moment, like I've always thought all my moments were low, but what really put me into feeling like I needed something else or like was insane was I had a miscarriage like I think it was 4 years ago. And I was after that, I thought I was okay, and I was just in my kitchen cutting a knife, and I pictured, like, what if I just turned around and, like, accidentally stabbed my kid? I'm like, "Oh, what is that?" And I'm like, I didn't know what it was. I thought that I wanted to stab my children, and I was, like, the same way as you because I've always wanted to be a mom, and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's." And then I remember now knowing about the principles, but, like, back then I was like, did I just, like, wanna do I wanna stab my kids? Am I gonna stab myself? D Is that what that means? Like, it just, like, went on and on. And then I found your videos, and I was doing okay for a little bit, and then after I had my son, probably 2 to 3 months later, it was someone's I experienced, like, the more of the images, intrusive thoughts, and that just puts me, I feel like those just put me so low because it's not something I've had before. And I've never been diagnosed with OCD, but I felt like I had like the tendencies of like obsessing. And I didn't even know what rumination was until I met you, but I definitely have ruminated like, what is this? And the fear of going through that is like the first thing I think of is I'm going to be taken away from my kids. What are they going to do? Like, am I going to die? Do I got to go to a hospital? And am I ever going to get out of there? And it was just like so low. And I felt sick every day. And it was like a whole 17 hours. I don't feel like I got a 2 hour rest until I found you though. So when I worked up the courage because I was super anxious. I'm like, I need to see if she will work with someone who's like not in her state because I need her. And but still when I first started talking to you, it was still like rumination and just too much. I can live in my head. Like I could think of any and every scenario. I could stay there. I could call somebody to try to feel a little bit better, but it just didn't. I'm right back in my head after a little bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's just like, I don't know. I think the intrusive thoughts really get to you. It really, like when you don't know what it is and you think that it could be something else, especially as a mother, wondering if like, because I've had that like fear of going crazy. Like I pictured my kids just, everybody's on the couch and I'm going to go nuts here.
uh, yeah. What I know now is when we have a thought, it gets brought to life. And our brain almost is like, oh, do you want to? So our brain is like a computer. It's not saying, oh, I'm just going to bring to life the thoughts that are true and that are good. I'm only going to show you rainbows and when you're on vacation and having great sex. Like, it's like, oh my God, what if I lost my mind? Oh, okay, I'll play you a little video of that. Like,
Yes.
whether it's true or not. And so I think it's so terrifying because we can have a thought and feel it with our five senses, like but I think what we don't realize is that happens for everybody. But
Yeah.
when, like, where, if we, I think I'd shared that meme with you. Someone's like, when you're in the kitchen and you have the thought, like, if you turn around, someone's waiting there for you and you like
Yes.
scare yourself. I think every single person that I've talked to when they're struggling with intrusive thoughts, what's happened is they were at a more vulnerable place when they had a thought. So they had this innocent overreaction. And a lot of times it is like postpartum, where is it like a hormonal shift, but also like you're not sleeping as much, your well-being is a little bit lower. So you have a thought and it doesn't flow with ease. You have that
Yeah.
where, everybody or so many people have it. Like if they're on a rooftop or if they're, if you're high up, you're like, oh, I could jump here,
Yeah, but those aren't like as scary as the ones that just pop up when you're doing dishes and you're completely normal. And then it's like, oh my God. Like,
then that's a good point because I think when we hear that, oh yeah, that's expected, like, but it can be as scary because if somebody is on a rooftop and they have it, they might think, oh, do I want to jump? Why did I think that?
yeah,
But I think to your point too, it can be so scary when it's about people that we love, where if it's like,
yeah,
oh my God, my children, and also stuff that's why it's intrusive and unwanted, is because it goes against like who we are and what we want, with both of us
yeah,
valuing being mothers. And if we think of mothers, it's safety and love and protection. So I think having a thought about harm goes against that very nature. And that's why people can have an innocent overreaction. I have a great like 35-minute, it's a free whole video on intrusive thoughts. So I can also put the links, but yeah, guys can go and watch it there. Um,
I've watched that 7 times.
oh, okay. So
I really,
somebody, oh, good. Somebody messaged me, and because I had changed the link about it, she's like, and I'm not saying anyone has to do this, but she's like, I watch it every day. I've memorized it. But she struggled with intrusive thoughts, and she actually, I think, had such a misunderstanding about herself that she had her son taken out of her care. So I'm hoping to hear an update and maybe they're reunited. But I think that's why every single person that I've talked to that has struggled with intrusive thoughts, it's like the kindest, most loving, best person. And that's why we can sometimes have
Yeah.
that overreaction.
And I'll never forget too when you told me, because I would feel like a sensation with a thought, and it's like I always, if you watch someone get kicked in the groin, you're gonna be like, ugh, ugh. So like I always put two and two together. So that's really helped me though, because why? I mean, it makes sense. It's all
Yeah.
like love to me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I'm so mad when my mom told me she took a psychology course in college and knew about the three principles. Why did you do to me my entire life is how it felt, you know,
What do you wish she told you? Like, what do you wish you knew? You know,
the
yeah.
thought. I wish I like so like listening to it now, I can very easily like it's all because of me. Like and to know that like thoughts are like creating your feelings and your emotions and the thought is from me. It's not from anybody else. So like I've been starting to see that too. Like sometimes my husband makes me feel insecure because he's just a guy, but maybe that's not his fault. Maybe it's my thinking about it. And then I get the insecure feelings or and then I told myself too, so like when I'm sad or depressed, it's because I'm thinking about something that's making me feel that way. It's like creating an emotion for me. And then I'm like, oh, well, I can change this. I don't know. It just feels really good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it feels like when I'm hearing that, oh, no one can make me feel any certain way, nobody or nothing. And that's kind of a good thing because it doesn't it if I start to notice that I'm insecure, my feeling of insecurity is coming from my thoughts. And not even like I'm going to do this right and I'm never going to feel insecure. But it's so helpful when we know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Oh, like if I ever, whatever, am in a feeling like, oh my God, my business could fail, that's all my thoughts. I'm not feeling reality. We're feeling our thinking. If I am insecure about my relationship or my body or anything, it's not because like our thoughts are not telling us the truth or our feelings aren't telling us the truth. Our feelings are just telling us where our thinking is.
Yeah. I've been noticing that the last probably like week too. Like, and I'm trying to keep, I'm actually not even really trying. And it's really weird because right before my period comes, that's where I go. I will joke around and say I've gone manic.
Yeah,
Like I'll,
yeah.
whatever. I have been calm. And I'm like, why am I calm? I don't know if I like this, but like things just aren't bothering me as much. Some still are. I'm not perfect. I don't, but I just tell myself now that I'm human and I can cry and I can have emotions and emotions are beautiful. And I've just been like letting it just,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh wait, I couldn't hear you for a second.
did that work?
Yeah, yeah, now I hear you.
Okay. My AirPod died, so that's fine.
Oh,
But it doesn't just, I still feel anxious. It's just getting better and more peaceful.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
want people to feel that too. Like if you feel, I just always felt there was no hope. Never thought that this was going to happen to me, that I would be here or to be a therapist because I've always felt triggered by certain people. I am not triggered. I probably wouldn't have been able to hear you talk about that thought that you said when you were at your lowest months ago. No, it would have freaked me out.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm sitting perfectly fine.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, yeah. What would you say to somebody that is feeling hopeless right now? That feels like, well, it's all good for them. But because when sometimes I'd hear people and I'd be like, they must not have anxiety as bad as me. What if somebody was really hopeless right now?
That's what I was. If somebody was really hopeless, I would probably try my hardest to just tell them like it's going to get better. And I would try my hardest to explain to them the three principles and the way I've learned it because I have been hopeless. And during that time though, I remember people could tell me something and I wouldn't believe it though. Because
Yeah.
I'm anxious. I have anxiety and you don't know how it feels and you don't have it like I do. Because I never thought there was somebody else out there like me.
Yeah.
So I'd probably just explain that to them. Like even if you it's just I it's like when my neighbor came over and she was very low. I was like, "Oh my God, you gotta like know about the thought." Like I was like, "You gotta follow my therapist and you gotta know about three principles." And it's just you're thinking maybe you don't have a severe mental health illness. Maybe it's all the same. And I was trying my hardest so bad to tell her about it, even though I'm not like licensed in it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
something you want to tell. It's like you got to get it out and you need to know more.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think I love that because it also, when I'm hearing from you, your desire to share is like, oh, I want you to have hope. Like there's hope for everybody. In that I felt like you were like everybody's sitting in the middle of mental well-being. And 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 when I think of it, anytime I work with anybody, I I believe in their mental well-being. I see their mental well-being. There's nobody with doesn't matter what their past is, what their diagnosis is or their diagnoses that is not capable of peace of mind, of mental well-being, and so I think if you feel hopeless, um one I wouldn't I would just sit there and I see you and I love you, and our feelings let us know what train of thought we're on. So sometimes we are on that kind of hopeless train of thought, but it doesn't mean anything about your nature or who you are or what your future is going to be. um because we can be so wrong with our thoughts, and they can feel really true. I know we both really like that book Seduced by Consciousness by Jack
Oh,
Crancy,
yes.
because we so see it where we're just living in the feeling of our thinking. We're living in this imagination. And one of that could be, oh my God, I'm a hopeless case. I could never feel as good as Fallon or as Lily. I nope, there's no hope for me. And what I'm hoping that we're saying is there's hope for everybody. And my mentor, Dr. Pettit, would always say, there's always hope because there's always health.
I love that. I love to I'm a lovable mess.
Yeah, yes.
I think that's gonna be my next tattoo so I can always remind myself that I'm so and it's okay to be a lovable mess. And that's one thing too that I would beat myself up. Like, I'm a mom. I'm not supposed to lay in bed. I'm not supposed to be having a panic attack in this bathtub. But now, like, if I have a little bit anxiety and I want to take a bath, I'm gonna take a bath. And if I want to lay down, I'm gonna lay down because I feel like I need to be okay and I want to feel like more at peace. And then that's gonna make me be a better mom and wife and person.
Yeah, yeah. What I'm hearing there, or I'm wondering when I think of that for myself, is when you give yourself a break, you actually give yourself a break because you're not beating yourself up in your head. Because, yeah, we can take a bath. And think, what's wrong with me? I shouldn't be taking a bath. I'm a horrible mom. Oh my God, my anxiety is ruining my life. There's no break there. But it sounds like you can fully, like, now, like, take a nap, take a bath, and it's truly restorative.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like just to not be caught up in your head is amazing. And I always remember that you told me that too. So we're just caught up a little bit. And
Yeah.
I'm actually at peace with that too. So, like, if I get caught up and I feel like I'm repeating something or a song is going over and over in my head or anything, like, it's just there. I just let it be there. And it doesn't even stay there as long now that I'm not ruminating on it.
No, I know. I think what was different anytime before the principles, I would be like, okay, now I'm going to do this. And this means I'm never going to feel anxious again. And then if I did, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong. And now, you know what? Most of the time I feel really good. But this morning I had like an impromptu client call. And so I talked to her right until I was like, okay, we can talk for 30 minutes. And but I had to just like, I literally was like, let's talk now. And I put my shoes on and I walked to the gym. And so we talked until the second my exercise class was starting. I was like, okay, I'm walking in. And I think something about like then it was starting and like someone came up to me and talked to me. I had like a wave of like a weird feeling. And I was just kind of what you said. It's not like I'm like, oh my God, this means something. And because most of the time I don't. And it was like, and I felt like a little weird. And then I felt like slightly weird sometimes during the class. And it was like, okay, and then I didn't even think of it until you said that, but it's, I think peace, it's not dependent on, I'm never going to have a weird thought and I'm never going to have an uncomfortable or an anxious thought or feeling again, it's so possible to, like, I never would have thought that, because that wasn't derealization, but it was a similar-ish feeling. Like, it was just suddenly like, ugh, weird. Like, I don't know, this guy came to talk to me who I really liked, but it was like suddenly he was close, and it like I think I just got like, I don't know, whatever. I was got like discombobulated. It sounds so weird, but it's like, it's not any different than if I was hungry. Like, okay, like, it's no longer like, oh my God, okay, if I have a moment of an anxious thought or like a weird thought, before it just blew up as if it meant something about me and my sanity, when like it's literally not. It's no different than a feeling of irritation or a feeling of, I mean, hunger, we have to eat, but it's like, oh, I'm hungry, and like, okay, like big whoop, where we're
Yeah.
human. Sometimes we're going to get irritated. Sometimes we're going to be jealous. Sometimes we might feel anxious. Okay, I'm full. Like, I think what I'm feeling from both of us is like, we're ready just to be humans.
Yes, right. I thought that the other day, actually. I'm ready to just like be accepted of all these feelings. And then it just like comes so naturally. It really truly is such a natural thing. Like I just woke up one day and I felt like more at peace. And I didn't do nothing at all. Because the night before that, I mean, I had a panic attack, but I mean, I kind of just let it be there and went to bed because I mean, I was tired. So it was almost like I didn't have time for this panic attack right now. I need to go to bed. So
Yeah.
I just woke up and I think I even fought with my husband that night and I did not even bring it into the day. Nothing. It's such a beautiful feeling
Yeah.
to, and I can't wait for more of it to happen though. Like, I can't wait for like my insecurities to just start falling away and like I'm not like an angry person. Everybody's always said I have like the best empathetic heart. And I'm like, oh well, thank you. Like that's just something I've strived in. Like I'll give you 10 million chances and I will always be there and I will always be kind. But I don't know, it's just when you start to get it and feel it, your life becomes I'm starting to like enjoy things a little better
Mhm.
instead of living that like more of a doom sense of feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
Because
think
I
it, go
yeah,
on.
I had an intrusive thought the other day, and I felt like a weird sensation in my head, and I was like, it just was there for 5 minutes, not the whole day.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I felt weird probably for accumulation of 5 minutes at the gym. Like, um, and
Did
it's
it
like,
work for you when other people were like around? Like the sensation, were noises loud for you too? And
I mean, like, it wasn't that bad. It was, it's funny because I think I still have a brain. So my brain's like, is it because you had 2 glasses of wine? Because I did. And I don't, don't usually have like 2 glasses, and it was like, so, but I didn't have to pay it any mind. It was like, and then even I made up, you know what? It was because you talked on the phone until the minute you got here, and maybe you had the 2 glasses of wine, and maybe you're working too hard. And like, I know if I'm feeling anxious, none of my thoughts are going to be helpful. But why I'm sharing that is it's not like I feel weird and I'm just a Zen Buddha. Like, my brain can still chatter, but like, I know there's nothing to see there. Like, I don't start ruminate, or even I was like, I wonder why you're having this. Like, are you resisting your experience? It was like, I don't know. My brain just still shares its opinion, but and I think some of it I actually would still like bring on the feeling a little bit. Like, then I would be like, is it there?
I, I still do that.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's funny because I was just talking about, and I wasn't even a feeling of derealization. Like, it was just suddenly like I don't know, like pre. Like, I don't know. It was just a suddenly like slightly weird feeling in my brain. And but I really, at my deep core, it's no different than like, even though there's 1% of me that's like, but I don't like this, and maybe it means that you're doing something wrong. 99%, it's like, it's just, all right, I'm hungrier today or whatever. Like there's such a big part of me that's like, it's meaningless. There's nothing wrong. Do you feel like that with, or what was it like? What do you think was helpful? And I guess for me, the reason I'm saying that is there's nothing like that I did. It's more just this deep grounding and understanding that like I always return to balance.
That's
Everything.
what, like, we are never stuck. That is, I'm stuck with that saying now for the rest of my life.
I love it.
But it actually helped me because any little sensation I would ever get, I would freak out. Like, and I would jump. If I was at a restaurant too, that's where I would jump to. Somebody could have poisoned my food. What if the waiter put something in this drink? What if they're having a bad day and or do they do drugs and they put it in my drink? And now I'm going to go home. And then I would feel weirder. And now I know, like, that's just like my thinking. And sometimes, especially when I go out to dinner with all the kids, I'm not all there because I have 5, but it's just like the sensation to just leave it there and know that I'm not stuck. And then sometimes my brain will like give me like a little video of me of when I'm not where I'm at and when I'm not stuck, and like I'm like, oh, so that's coming, and I just feel like this little exciting feeling, and I think it just makes it feel so much better because all those times that I thought was like the end, this is it. I'm gonna go manic. I'm gonna die. My dad's gonna die, or this or that. Like I've always go back to who I've been before that thought or before that panic attack. But I've never seen it until now. So I think that's my motto for the rest of my life. We are never stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that should be the title of our podcast.
I think so. Cause I think it's really
I think it's really good. I think it's really good. Let's have that be the new title. So you guys are seeing it, or you're hearing it the first. We're never stuck. That's.
Do you feel good about it? Because I do.
I feel so good about it. But it's like, look, even in that, because I thought I didn't know if I liked insights, but I just had this knowing if there's a better title, we'll come to it. And so I think that's even proof that we don't need to think and analyze. We just had a good time. We had this conversation, and then it was so clear to me and to both of us. Oh, that should be the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's an even better title. Not that insights weren't the best one either, because I love that one.
But it's the best title. You know what? One thing, and then I'm aware of our time. We were also going to talk about dentists, but maybe let's pose it. Maybe after this, we'll chat and we'll find a time to do it. This can just be our intro. But you had said something like it's the most natural thing. And I wanted to just touch a little bit on that because I know that you're a mom of 5 kids, and we see with kids where they can be irritated or they can be like really sad, and then they get over it. And it is the most natural thing to have emotions, even strong emotions, and not be stuck in them. And like, it's so natural because I've picked up on what you've been saying where you're like, oh, I didn't even try hard, and I think that's what's so different about the principles. A lot of people sometimes are like, recovery is going to be hard and healing is going to be hard and you have to work hard. And what we've been talking about is actually, it's kind of the opposite of when you have more of an arms open wide, and how natural it is that what's on offer is being a human at peace with living life, like how more childlike, even though I was definitely an anxious child, but I didn't understand it, but there was still like, that quality to not be stuck. Does that resonate with you? Is like what you were talking about when what did you mean for you?
My month-old has a tantrum, and then I give him a toy, and like I say it's gonna be okay, and he's like, and he's all happy looking at his toy, and he's like completely forgot about the reason he was probably even upset. But that happens to me too. Like now I could get so upset, really angry. And then like I just because I was learning that the anger, sad, all of it is just like a thought. And it's creating like the emotion and the feelings inside of you. And I was like, is that true? So I don't have to be angry and like sad like the whole day. Like I can actually change it because I can hold on to something and tell you about it 10 years from now. That's how I've always been. But it's just to let things go is so good. And I've just like learned that because I do have like a little bit of like obsessiveness sometimes. But it's so good to let it go, to
Yeah.
not even, why was I mad? Oh, I don't even remember. I don't care. I'm happy right now.
I know. There's so many topics that we can talk about too, because I think one thing that's so different, I'm divorced, and so I'm in a newer relationship. I mean, we've been together 4 years, but like one thing that I wish I did in my marriage was like, let shit go. Like I would be like, I have to hold on to it. And like, I would really like stoke the fire. But I thought that that was, Aaron, one of my new mentors, he'd say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And everything that we did previously was like we did it because we thought it was helpful. Like I thought holding on to certain things was helpful. But when we truly see how good it feels, I can let things go. So many things. Because when we are angry too, it's like we're holding on to jagged rocks. Did you say that? Is that in
Yeah.
Suzuki consciousness? Holding
I
on to jagged rocks. And then, but you know what? The feeling, if we do this, if you're watching the video, I'm squeezing my hands and our nails start to dig into our palms and it
Yeah.
hurts. And the hurting wakes us up so we can let go. That's why it's the most natural thing. We can make a fist, but if we squeeze a fist tight, it's going to hurt. And the hurting
Yeah.
wakes and to letting go. And that's both of us were hurting with anxiety and obsessing and panic. But the hurting led us here.
And I just had an insight because you said when you were married, that if you let shit go. I've always wondered why the next day my husband is so happy because he's letting the shit go and he's trying to kiss me. Everything's okay. I'm over here creating my own feelings for myself with my thinking because I'm still thinking about it. So it's always like, I was like, oh, that's what that means. I had an insight. So I'm holding on to all this shit when I could just let it go. And we could go grocery shopping and watch a movie tonight and we could be happy and we're not going to be fighting tonight. This is how I just felt about that.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
think the letting go is just, it's just beautiful. But I'm okay with things taking time now too. I used to be like, this needs to go away now, but it's going to take time and it's going to be so good when it gets here is how I'm like, the positivity just comes, it's like beaming into your life when you know the three principles is how I feel about it.
Oh, I love that. And it's so beautiful too that I'm okay for as long as it takes. I think I feel that way too. I started working with a business coach about 5 months ago and I signed up with him for 6 months. I'll probably work with him for a year because I'm like, yeah, there's some shit that could be better in my business, but I'm not like, I needed him to fix it in 30 days. I'm like, oh, like, and there's still more for me to see. And I love that you're like, I'm okay, with, let me see how this unfolds in my relationships. And, George and Linda Pransky are two of my mentors. I know you also read the relationship handbook.
I love
And George, they talked about wiping the slate clean each day in your relationship and not holding bad feelings in your head, not holding grudges. And when we see that when we let go, it actually benefits us because then you're like, oh, wait, I could have a nice day. We could have a nice Saturday together and watch movies and be cozy. And I'm the only one that hurts myself if I don't let go.
Yeah. And then I'll notice too, like, if I take a quick second and think about why I was mad in the first place, sometimes I forget and I don't even remember, but then I'll get that pissed off. Like, I'll get that feeling again. I'm like, oh no, wait, I don't want this. I just don't, you start to learn too. So when you don't want those feelings, you can control it yourself. Or I think actually the less I controlled it and just tried to stay peaceful and just not even distract, but just be more present is when I used to think that too, like, okay, so I'm distracting myself from my anxiety. No, no, no. Like you said, I'm just more present. I'm like focusing on playing with my baby and it's not there right now. Or going for a walk or whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
Even calling a friend now, I used to think of that as me needing reassurance, but no, we're just venting and we're having a good time. And I feel like it gets me present and I hope that it gets them present as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I also heard in that it's not like, okay, I've got to find the right thing. What's going to make me feel better? Because when you have the grounding, even just the grounding, I'm never stuck and there's nothing wrong with me. we can do anything. We can call a friend, we can take a walk because we know we're not going to focus like on the quote unquote problem, like it's like because sometimes we take our mind away and then we forget about it. I think what happens is when we are so anxious and we don't have an understanding, we think there's something we need to do when the most natural thing is for thoughts to flow and our feelings to change. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, do I want to call a friend? We're not like, oh my God, I'm seeking reassurance. And I think people innocently overcomplicate well-being, mental
Yeah.
well-being. Does your tattoo say strength?
Yes, it does.
Oh my God, I love that.
I thought I just go and get these random ones. That was when I thought that I was having manic episodes and using my time not wisely. But actually, I love every tattoo I have. So
Well, I think it's interesting because I think sometimes I've had that thought, especially if it's after like a tireder period, then I'm energetic. And sometimes I'm
yeah,
like in flow, and then my brain's like, maybe you're manic. Which also, there's nothing wrong if somebody does have a diagnosis of, does experience mania. But I think it's very natural for humans sometimes to be more energetic and maybe more
yeah,
impulsive. And our brain's just like chatting away, sharing its opinion. And we don't need to pay it any mind.
no,
Yeah. Well, this has been a great first episode. Um, I'm so excited. Now we know our podcast. So thank you for listening to the first episode of We're Never Stuck.
yes,
Well,
I love it.
yay. We have to think of an image.
Yes, we could find an image.
I
That
know.
though, just like the title. I
Yes,
feel.
yeah. Well, something I pictured when you said coming into the principles, it's like positivity, like a beam of light, you
Yeah,
know? Um,
a
well,
beam, like uh, a sun, and
yeah,
some.
yeah. Maybe the sun behind the clouds or something, or like we'll let it unfold.
Yeah,
So thank you everybody for tuning in. This is our first podcast episode. Next time, should we do the dentist? Because we both had
yeah.
dental anxiety.
I
And
think because that
I,
one was that I've been through 10 dentists, so we should do a dentist. We
yeah,
should do it on an insights.
you know what? It could be a funny playoff if we say we're never stuck. We're never stuck with dental anxiety.
Yeah,
So we use it like, and also we don't have to stick to it, but it's kind of good. We're never stuck with dental anxiety. We're never stuck with angry feelings. We're never stuck with
yeah,
insecurity. Like we could kind of do a play off of that.
something.
All of our, I just love you, Falon. I'm so excited that we did this. Thank you for agreeing to
I'm excited that you gave me this opportunity because I could sit here and talk to you all day.
it.
But it helps others too, you know,
Yeah.
especially makes them feel like a little less alone because that was one of my biggest things. Nobody has ever felt this way.
Same, same. I think, and I get that feedback a lot from people that are like saying that I was the first person. And that's why I think I've been so inspired by the insights that you've had. And
You.
I know you're going to be a great therapist. And so it's like, you'll be like, hey, you can listen to this. This was, you'll hear, like it will be,
Yeah,
I think it will be really interesting that we're starting here and there's no pressure to continue, but like, wouldn't it be interesting to look back in a year when you're like,
actually just thinking that because I've done that with my journals. If we look back on this year, I bet you we're going to both be in different spots and places and feel a lot better.
I bet so too. And then people can see, wow, they're always growing, because I think that's the greatest thing. Like, I'm so happy with where I'm at. I'm a lovable mess. And I know I'm going to continue to have insights and to be more at peace and be a better coach and be a better mom. But it doesn't mean I'm not great right now. And there might
Yeah.
be some moments where I'm irritable and I'm shitty and I feel weird at the gym.
And you know what? I'm sure I'm going to have you when I'm a therapist. I'm going to still have you as my therapist because
Then we'll
I'm
just
going
be colleagues.
to. Yes, that's true.
I know. Well, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, let's start it. It's funny. I've had these images of us working together. Like, I'm like, oh, and so I just feel like it's just the start, and I'm excited to see
Yeah.
your insights blossom. And I just feel like you do have such a gift, and just also how you just like had a genuine, pure passion and interest. And that's like me, where, yay. Well, thank you so much. I'll stop recording it and we can stay on, but
Okay.
everybody, well, stay tuned for We're Never Stuck with Dental Anxiety.
More from this.
Yeah. I hope everyone have a lovely day.
Yes, and thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you. Yay.